All right, and welcome to the Zone Live inside the etvarsity.com studio, I guess we can call it here. All kinds of stuff going on. We got a fashion shoot for Charm Magazine behind us over here. I'm glad we didn't get mixed up and go to the wrong place there because I do not want to see these two guys in a pink dress. Let's just get that out of the way first. And I'm sure they don't want to see me in a little blue thing either. So, anyway, welcome to the Zone Live. This is, fun time of year. We was thinking earlier on, and I mentioned this to someone. We started the season with 98 teams in our etvarsity.com coverage area, the Longview News Journal coverage area, and guys, we're down to 6 teams, and it's a lot of fun. This is the time of year these kids play for, the coaches coach for, the fans are excited about it, and it's what we love. So let's get started. We've got a game actually that's going to kick off here in about 2 hours in Houston. The Wascom Wildcats with Coach Whitney Keeling. Man, what a great season for those guys. They're up against Refugio. It took me about the first 19 years of my 27-year sports writer career to learn how to say that name correctly, but it is Refugio. And they're kicking off at 7:30 at Reliance Stadium in Houston. Hayden, thoughts on this game? I mean, this is, again, what a great season for Wascom.
Yeah, definitely coming back, after having to forfeit the wins last season to make it to this point. Just tonight, two completely different styles of football. I don't think you could get further away from the opposite ends of the spectrum there, with Wascom with the wishbone offense and then Refugio, high flying. Two completely different styles.
Yeah, and, the thing that jumps out at me on this game is just it's really strange. Wascom last week faced a Cork and Camden team that had thrown the ball 26 times all season. And tonight they're going up against a Refugio team and quarterback Travis Quintanilla, who's thrown for 13,410 yards in his career. He's the state leader in that category. 178 touchdown passes. He leads the state in that category. This season alone, he's thrown for 4,600 yards and 60 touchdowns. So just incredible numbers. And, I don't know Wascom. I don't worry about them too much. As far as being able to do different things. The big worry for me on this one is just they haven't faced a team like this. The teams that they played Hugh Springs, they played Cork and Camden. The teams they played in the playoffs are primarily running teams, so that could hamper them tonight.
And it could, but it's going to come down to who gets some stops in this game. Refugio, they average 56.4 points a game, and Wascom, that makes Wascom look bad, but Wascom averages 52.3, so both these teams can put up some points. And, Refugio, that's what they've always been known for, is a team that scores a lot. ESPN even did a story on them a couple years ago about how dominant they've been. Well, it's Wascom's time to show that, hey, it's their time now.
Exactly. Yeah, and, I think one stat to throw out, they throw the ball a lot. Quintanilla threw 4 interceptions last week.
Wow.
So, if Wascom
can 8 all year.
Exactly. If Wascom can get after them on defense and forcing them into some bad situations, get those turnovers and capitalize, could be a great ball game.
At Reliance Stadium.
At Reliance Stadium, exactly, in Houston. All right, let's move on a little bit. That's tonight's game. We'll have that game for you in the Longview News Journal. It'll be in the Marshall News Messenger, and it'll be on etvarsity.com. So check that one out. Let's move on to the White Oak Roughnecks and Cameron Yo, the Yeomen, playing at a pretty nice stadium themselves. Our lights just went out. We have to. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. I thought I was passing out there for a minute. Playing at Eagle Stadium in Allen, $65 million palace there, and Brandon's going to get to cover that game. Brandon, you wrote a nice feature story on White Oak today for today's newspaper. And you'll be covering the game. Talk a little bit about the Roughnecks.
Well, the Roughnecks they're definitely a balanced team. Most high school teams have one thing they do well. White Oak, the thing that's gotten as far as they do everything well. Great defense and great passing game and great running game. And my story today obviously was on their defense, and sometimes it maybe gets overshadowed. Well, they forced 5 turnovers last week. They forced 31 this season, and that's been a big key for them. And they shut out a Franklin team last week that was averaging more than 48 points a game. And now they go against a Cameron Yo team, defending state champs, averages more than 45 points a game. But, White Oak, they're not phased. They beat Newton and Franklin the last 2 weeks, so I think they're up to the challenge. But, Cameron Yo, they're going to be an interesting dynamic because Newton and Franklin were both primarily running teams. Cameron Yo features the same type of balance attack White Oak does. The quarterback, Jason Capriva, and he's had a big year, thrown for almost 3,000 yards, 45 touchdowns. and then they got a 2,000-yard ball carrier in Trayon Smith. He's a sophomore. So, and then Cameron, they got two really dynamic receivers. They don't have like one dominant one, and a lot like White Oak, where a lot of balance. So it could be a similar balance of styles there. So that'd be could be an interesting game at a really nice stadium.
Could be a lot of points put up in at Eagle Stadium there. The thing that jumps out at me about White Oak is just, again, you talk about the balance on offense. Dylan Gale, we've talked about this, for several weeks now. I mean, the kid, they just don't turn the ball over. And that's just, that's important anytime. I mean, but you can't afford to turn the ball over, especially this time of year. And he's thrown 335 passes this season. He's thrown 2 interceptions. I mean, it's phenomenal. 34 touchdowns. If they don't put the ball on the ground, don't throw the interceptions, that's why White Oak's still playing.
Well, in last week, the one time they turned it over, they were almost about to score. They turned it over. 2 plays later, Gabe Michael strips the ball carrier for Franklin, and then White Oak ends up scoring again. So the times they do turn over, their defense is so good they can get it right back.
Exactly. And the Roughnecks, exciting time for them. This is if they win this week, then next week they'll play for a state championship. That'll be their first time to play for a championship since 1957. They shared a state title with Mart back in 1957. So just great things going on there at White Oak. Obviously always had a good volleyball program. Basketball teams won back-to-back state championships. Now you throw football in the mix. They're good in everything out there. And just really nice to see for Coach Stanford and for that crew out there. All right, moving on a little bit. One more Friday game to talk about, Tenaha and Falls City. And this is, and I skipped the Carthage Bulldogs, and Hayden's over here waiting for me to talk about them. Brandon had a nice story in today's paper. Hayden will have a story on Carthage, kind of touching mostly on one series of plays last week that I think defines this season for Carthage. Talk about that game a little bit.
Everyone's been calling it the drive all season. That 20 mile an hour in the wind, or facing the wind. 93 yards, they marched down the field, convert 2 fourth downs. Blake Bogenschutz Coach Surratt, said it was undescribable. His 16-yard play on a 4th and 11, then capped off with Tevin Pipkin sealing the win for Carthage last week to get them back a step further than they were last year, which was a real big thing for Surratt this week. He said the whole team, last year they were in a similar spot where they could have marched down the field and scored. Last week they were able to do it, so they're real proud of that moment, Obviously, Tevin Pipkin holding that ground game in the weather, another thing that Carthage has seen over the past few weeks, really coming on strong, set the career record for rushing at Carthage, which is saying a lot, honestly.
Right.
Just a lot of good things going on in Carthage. I had a real good talk with Coach Surratt this morning, and he's real high on their defense. The offense came back with 10 starters from last year, so no doubt that they were going to be riding high. And he said early on in the season, in practice, when it was ones-on-ones, offense was cruising. Now he's seen every week that defense has just been narrowing it down. He said now it's an all-out war when those ones-and-ones go out there. So a lot of respect for LaGrange team. They got a defensive lineman that's committed to A&M, so it's going to be another big battle in the trenches in order to get that ground game running. Surratt said keeping the balanced attack, which Carthage has had all year with Bogenschutz and his all his weapons. If they get that going, it's going to be real hard to stop the Carthage Bulldogs.
Yeah, and that's obviously the key for Carthage, and for any team I think this time of year is, whatever the weather dictates, whatever the other team dictates, you have to be able to answer to that, and that's what Carthage did last week. Horrible weather. I kind of miss going out and covering the games. I usually stay back here and kind of direct things behind the scenes a little bit. Miss going out and covering the games. I did not miss going out last weekend. It was cold, folks, and that cold weather, the wind, and everything else. Carthage battled through that. They said, okay, we can't throw the ball like we normally do. Let's run it, and they did. And the defense shut them down. So just great performance by the Bulldogs. And that game's going to be played Carthage and LaGrange at 7:30 Friday night at Vernon Newsom Stadium in Mansfield. So that should be a good one. Real quick, want to touch on Tenaha and Falls City. Another state semifinal. That game's going to be 7:30, or is it 7 or 7:30? I believe it's 7:30. That's at Waco ISD Stadium. That'll be Friday night. This is I think Tenaha is right where everybody thought they would be this year. Back in there, they brought back almost everyone on offense, and of course in 1A that means you bring back almost everyone on defense too. Great matchup though. You did this preview. What do you see in this one real quick?
Well, these two teams, one of these teams has played in the state championship game the last 3 years. Falls City won it in 2010, Hall won it in 2011, and then got back there last year and lost in the championship game. So both these teams know, but Falls City, when they won in 2010, they were just, everyone said they were a good team. Well, this year they got a dynamic transfer. I was reading a feature on him yesterday. Justin Twine, transfer from Hemp Hill. Ran for 534 yards in a game as a quarterback as a sophomore. Well, now he's a running back for Fall City, also a big-time baseball prospect going to TCU for baseball. So, dynamic athlete that normally Hall's the one with the dynamic athletes. Fall City's not used to have it. They're just a bunch of, big, strong kids, but now they got a dynamic athlete, and it should be an exciting game between those. Fall City, another thing about them is, I noticed this yesterday, they've outscored opponents 632 to 56 this year, and 151 to nothing in the playoffs.
It's good football team. That should be a great matchup. Let's move on to a big game Saturday now. Kilgore and Stephenville, rematch of a game that took place exactly this time last year. Stephenville won that one, knocked the Bulldogs out of the playoffs, knocked them out of a chance to play for a state championship. I know coaches and don't really want to play up the revenge factor, and I'm pretty sure Coach Mike Wood didn't even mention revenge, but a lot of these guys played on that team. They know, and nobody has to tell them what's at stake, obviously. Guys, the thing that jumps out of this, I covered in 2004 when Kilgore won the state championship. I covered 2 of their regular season games and all of their playoff games, including the state championship. And this team just, on paper and what I'm seeing reminds me a lot of that team. They can throw the football if they need to. They've got a playmaker on the outside that can take you deep on it. Playing great defense, do all those things right. But the main thing that they do is they just run the football, and I love that style of play. They're just going to line up, and they I guarantee you there's times where they're tempted to say, hey guys, we're going to run the ball right here, see if you can stop us, and teams haven't been able to do it. I mean, they're put up a little more than 500. I think Hayden has the numbers over here. 513 yards and 8 touchdowns rushing last week against a good Chapel Hill team. 400 and something yards and 7 touchdowns a week before that. The stat that jumps out to me is they're averaging 9.6 yards per carry. Over the last couple of games, it's just phenomenal. I mean, they seem to just do what they need to do on offense. Hayden had a chance to talk a little bit to Coach Mike Wood and a couple of players this week. What do you see out there in Bulldog land?
Yeah, Coach Wood and they were very high on that offensive line. I mean, it's a group together that's been together since the 7th or 8th grade, so they're really, really coming along strong, with Kevin Justice, junior running back, 1,654 yards, 31 touchdowns, just typical Kilgore football over there, And obviously, like you said earlier, they're all happy to be back in this round, and he just said it just so happens to be against Stephenville, So that revenge factor is definitely there. They didn't play it up at all. They're happy to be at this chance, fighting for a chance to go back to the state title. So,
Exactly.
a lot of good things happening over there too. Stephenville is a very impressive team. Got a quarterback, Jason Stidham, picked up an Oregon offer last week to go along with a handful. You see his numbers: 2640 in the air. 999 on the ground. Wow. And then to go along with a freshman running back in Williams with over 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns. Just very impressive. Kilgore's got the work cut out for them.
Should be a great game.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to tell us it's time to wrap it up and keep turning the lights out on us here. But one more game to mention before we go. New Boston and Wall. That game is at 5 o'clock Saturday at Hewitt Midway. Got to give props to New Boston. They pitched They played one of the best defensive games probably been around here. Last week they beat Dangerfield, a good Dangerfield team, beat them 41-14. They allowed 4 total yards in that game. It's just crazy numbers. And, wish them a lot of luck too. That game's, we'll have all of these games. Again, start checking etvarsity.com early and often. We'll have updated scores. We'll have stories on there very quickly. We'll have photos, and then everything will be in the Longview News Journal. Tomorrow, Friday, and what is tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Friday.
Tomorrow, so it'll be tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Lots of football.